Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 2 of Transform with Ideal Life 360. I'm Brad Berger, and we are going to roll through our material. Let's talk a little bit about where we've been and where we're going. I think it's always great to have some perspective on our journey, both past and present, as well as future. So last week when we began, we kicked it off with words of encouragement. We talked a little bit about my journey. It's always good to have some background about why I'm doing the work that I'm doing. We made some specific recommendations to you along with a list. So the recommendations were 12 recommendations, and then there were 10 simple steps. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a moment here. And then we laid a foundation for the program by going through an overview. Week 1 was really getting started. It was the basis from the holistic and the integrative model and why we would want to do this work. And then this week is really about self-discovery and wellness planning. As we move forward, once this foundation is set and we've got the tools in place, we'll start to expand on those by introducing you to some very specific exercises that you can do to even further enhance your own personal transformation. So these are the 10 simple steps to transforming your life. And in last week's webinar, I provided you with the download of the 10 simple steps, as well as the 12 recommendations. I've also emailed those to you, so search your emails for those. Over the next 7 weeks that we're together, since we've already had 1 week and this is week 2, we're going to look at steps 1, 2, and what I'll call 3A. Because of the sheer volume of the material, we're going to break this up a little bit. There's a second step. There's a step 3B that really gets deeper into the wellness planning of the self-discovery and wellness planning. And we'll go over that as we then move into some of our specific exercises. So let's talk a little bit about those. In self-discovery and wellness planning, I want you to keep a couple things in mind. First of all, as you approach this work and embark on this journey of growth in wellness, I encourage you to be fearless, and I encourage you to play at 100%. If you miss an assignment, if you need more time to marinate on the topic, or simply don't have enough time for it, please do not give up forever. Come back to that assignment later. Finishing exercises from week 6 will still bring growth. Do what you can. So finishing an exercise from this week, if you don't get to week 6 or 7 or 8, you'll still have growth. Do what you can, do your best, whatever that looks like for you, day to day, week to week. Let's talk a little bit about that first step: awareness, acceptance, and intentional action. The 3 A's. Again, awareness, acceptance, and action. And action done with intention, as presented in this program, are separate yet equal components. And as you do each section and you do each exercise, I want you to take some time to deeply contemplate the questions. They need to be more than just superficial. You can put down an initial response, but it probably is worth some review later. And we'll talk a little bit about the approach to the self-discovery form as we go through it in a little more detail in a moment. So step 1, awareness. How many times have you been very aware of your negative thought patterns, self-image, negative habits, beliefs, and perceptions? You may not be aware or have connected your patterns with the outcomes you're experiencing in your life. We are all in our own world. We have these thoughts, we have these patterns, and we may not be making these connections. You can't consciously take action on something you are unaware of. It is therefore important for you to connect the dots. And I know that as we look at this large elephant, and as I've indicated before, what's the best way to eat an elephant? One bite at a time. As you look at what appears to be a daunting exercise, that you might want to say, why am I doing this? Here is the fundamental reason why. You can't consciously take action on something you are unaware of. It is therefore important to connect the dots. This is an exercise about laying the foundation to begin the process of connecting the dots. Step 2, acceptance. This means acceptance of your own responsibility for yourself. The real way to achieve and reach empowerment is by accepting responsibility for your life, your well-being, and your wellness. Wholeness and balance in all areas of your life is up to you. Just as wholeness and balance in all areas of my life is up to me. It's not dependent upon other people, other places, other situations, or things that are outside of you. You and you alone are in control of your own mind and the results of the thoughts and beliefs you have. You are in control of your perceptions, and those perceptions are what drive our outcomes. I'm going to spend a couple of slides talking about intentional action. So it's critical to first adopt this belief before any action steps are taken, because it's hard for you to take effective action if you're still making statements like, I can't help thinking negatively about, and you can fill in the blank, because they or it did or do the following. I have a bad self-image because my father always told me I was blank, right? I think I shared with you the example that, I love my grandmother, who has since passed away many years ago. But one of the things that she used to comment on about one of my physical appearances, was my waist, my midline, right? And I will tell you, to this day, I'm very self-conscious about that. And it's an area such as this work, right, that I deal with even today. So there are things from the past that affect our perceptions, outcomes, the way we think of each other, et cetera. Whatever you believe about yourself, that belief is a limit you alone have set. So, we have to ask ourselves the question, what if you are more than that belief? If you change your beliefs, it will change your life. You have the ability to overcome limiting beliefs and to put new beliefs in place. This first, however, requires you to look honestly and fearlessly at your beliefs and your stories, and we'll talk a little bit more about what we mean by that, and the rest of the world. Again, the first step requires you to look honestly and fearlessly at your beliefs and your stories and the rest of the world. I'm going to encourage you to dive deep into your self-discovery. It's amazing what you may find that is holding you back and keeping you from wellness, wholeness, and balance in your life. It could be something that you've been dealing with, for decades. And by going through this work, you could have an aha moment that says, that's where I learned that from. That's where I began to believe that, and you can shed that belief. Because once you've uncovered these beliefs and stories, I'm going to challenge you to ask yourself the following questions. And that is, who or what would I be without this belief or without this story? What could I be free to do, or what could I be free to be? Is this belief or story really true? Is it true? Is it something we made up? Is it an interpretation? Is it a projection? Is it an amalgamation of things that we think or believe? Does this story or belief serve me in living the life I want, or does it limit me? So let me share with you that not every story that you have in your life, not every thought, perception, teaching that you have is wrong. But what we're challenging you here to do is to simply observe, evaluate, and potentially question it. And then here's the real hard part is, can I let go of this story if it doesn't serve me? So no matter what you have learned through popular culture, we talk about the culturally conforming conveyor belt in the Vital Lifelong Alignment. So no matter what you've learned through popular culture about who you are or what your value is, only you get to decide who you agree with and what is true for you. No matter what you may have understood through your relationship patterns or rules of your religion, no matter what you have been told by family members, by lovers, by teachers, or authority figures about who you are, how you were made, what your value is, you can let go of any stories that do not serve you. Again, you are uniquely you, and no one else can be you. Even our mistakes or damaging things that we've encountered in our lives do not define who we are. When we learn to let go of our stories, limiting beliefs, negative emotions, and patterns, we create the best version of ourselves the way that we and we alone, or you and you alone, envision that to be. And I hope that that's inspiring to you, because it really is the emphasis that we are responsible for our own lives. One person's perception is that person's reality. Since you can let go of old stories, especially those that don't serve you, and create new perceptions, you can create the life that you want for yourselves. You are free to define yourself and define your life. So what definitions, perceptions, or stories have you adopted that may not be true, that may not serve you well in being who you desire to be? So just imagine somebody who is physically unhealthy and had numerous injuries and issues with their body. They spend a lot of time talking about how weak they are, how fat they are, how unhealthy they are. They come across as a victim of injury and talk about the pain that they're in. Imagine if they were offered a new perspective, one where they could recognize their inner athlete, or the space inside of themselves that held the desire and the dedication to overcome the negative self-image. Imagine the person chose to adopt it. The paradigm shift, or that person's new story, now gives them power to completely shift their health status. They view themselves as an athlete, and they start treating their body accordingly with the way they feed and exercise it. Now, this story may seem simplistic, yet subtle shifts in our perception greatly affect all areas of the self, our soul, our heart, our mind, our bodies. By stepping out of the victim and into a state of empowerment, the real person that we are talking about above actually saw positive change in every area of their life. So where are we going with this? Well, we're going to start with an important tool. It's the self-discovery form. So, of course, this is available as a downloadable PDF for you to fill out. You can also, candidly follow along with the book Transform. This is my copy, and of course, in there is the self-discovery form. A lot of the exercises that we're going to be doing there. However, you can use this as a journal. You can write in this. You can use it now. You can also download and use the self-discovery form in the PDF. So that was provided in last week's webinar, and I've emailed that to you as well. Please fill out as much of the discovery form as completely as possible. As we've indicated before, the purpose of your self-discovery form is to help you learn more about yourself, your roadblocks, your beliefs, your patterns that work and do not work in your life. The self-discovery form is the starting point from which to achieve your goals. Putting the answers down on paper gives you clarity and provides an opportunity for accountability. The more open and honest you are with yourself, the stronger your experiencing success will be. Once you have answered these questions, you'll use the answers to create your personal wellness action plan by filling out the action graph exercise. So as we roll into what I'll call step 3B, which we'll get into next week, you'll want to have your self-discovery form as complete as possible. Now, I alluded to this a little bit earlier in the presentation here. Some people will do this form all at one time, and others, and this is what I find to be true, find it more helpful to take it a few questions at a time. If you spread out completing this form over time, be sure to marinate on the questions and see what comes up for you. And if you choose to sit down and fill it out all at once, what I recommend that you do is you set it aside for a few days, and then reflect on that, maybe journal on that, and then come back and review your answers, adding anything that may have come up. So you know what? Let's just dive into it. Let's get into the self-discovery form, and what I hope you're doing is that you're following along. So as I always say, we start with the softballs. What's your name? What's your age? What's today's date? An accountability partner. So why do we want this? We should pick a friend or a family member who can offer support and accountability, and I want to emphasize this, in a loving way for you throughout this program. So who is your accountability partner? And again, the emphasis here is someone who will respond from a place of love, not a place of judgment. What are the reasons, the problems, the challenges, the circumstances that you are doing this program? That you may not have even known that when you signed up for that, but now that you're in it, what is it that you're going to choose to work on? What do you want to see happen? What do you want to be better, different, or have more of in your life? The problems I most need to change or resolve in my life are, and by the way, this can also be something you want to achieve. This could be a goal. It doesn't necessarily have to be a problem, right? It's a change, a resolution, or something such as a goal. And on a scale of 1 to 10, and always on our scales, 1 is least, 10 is most, how intensely do you experience this problem, right? And another way to ask that question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how intensely do you need to achieve this goal? What have you done so far to try to resolve the problem, or what steps have you taken to achieve your goal? And then as part of this, you might want to also add into this, were these steps helpful or were they not helpful? Did they work or not work? It's always good to understand what we've done in the past, and has that been successful? Were portions of it successful? Were all of it successful? Was it a total disaster? There's nothing wrong with that. We learn from that. We grow from that. List why or how these problems, the situation, or the lack of achieving this goal is affecting your life. Again, why do you want to create this? Or why do you want to achieve this in your life? How will this positively affect your life? How long has this been a problem? Or how long has there been a desire to change? Or how long has this been a struggle in your life? When was it not a problem or a need in your life? And what specifically created this problem or need? What steps led up to it? For example, if you need to lose 10 pounds, what led up to gaining 10 pounds? Can you identify that? move my screen just a little bit. How do you feel about the problem or the need? What emotions are present? I really want you to marinate on this one and look back to the times that you think about the problem or the goal and try to connect those emotions that were present when you were thinking about it. Many of you who have worked with me before, and I know that some of you are new to working with me, I make the reference to, think about the things that have reappeared incomplete annually on your New Year's resolution list, right? Write about your family and childhood as it relates to this problem or issue. Now, this can be challenging one to answer, but what connection to your family's beliefs or how you were raised or your experiences or what you were told or how it may have been affected, created, or added to the goal, the problem, or the issue? Is there a purpose or a reason for having this problem or issue? So, another question to ask ourselves is, why would having this in my life have a reason or purpose? Everyone has a strategy or a pattern they use in order to achieve something for our greater good. We generally don't run into people who wake up in the morning and ask, how can I ruin my life today? We generally wake up and want to achieve something such as success or health or stability or love or community acceptance. However, some of the strategies create problems versus achieving it. What's the higher purpose or the reason to have this goal or issue? So here's an example. If I achieve this goal, I will no longer have the respect of my parents. If I let go of this guilt, I would have to repair a relationship. These are examples. How will you know when the problem has totally disappeared or when the goal has been accomplished? What will that look like or feel like? It's important in this one to be clear. How will it feel and what will it look like in your life when the problem is gone or when the issue is resolved? And are you willing to take the steps necessary in order to release the problem from your life or to resolve the problem, achieve the goal, or experience? What do you want to experience? Be honest. Take a deep look within. I oftentimes ask this question that is just exactly what this is getting at. Are you willing to do the work the goal requires? I have several things in my life where I said that I wanted to do it. I'm even made a plan, but what it came down to was I was simply unwilling to do the work the goal required. That's okay. That's what self-discovery is about. All right. On a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you willing to be with your time, your energy, your resources at overcoming the problem or resolving the issue? Of course, this diamond here is the least on the 1 and 10 is the most. My biggest goals are, we could also just call this, what are our highest priorities? The areas I struggle most in are, is it balance or is it self-discipline? Is it finances? Is it career, relationships, self-care, self-development, your spirituality, family, health, etc.? I spend most of my time on or doing an honest look at your days, weeks, or weekend. What do you do? What are you doing? I spend a lot of time thinking about, and these are your thoughts. When you wander off, and we all do, what you find your thoughts drifting? Where are you going when that's happening? My definition of success in life is, and I want you to question what comes up for you. So as an example, if your definition of success is having a powerful career, ask yourself, is that really true? Is that your definition or someone else's, parents, society, etc., right? You know, is that having that corner office with a big window with the magnificent view? I mean, is that your definition of success? Again, you know, watch any series of movies, and the suggestion is so. My definition of wellness and health is. My definition of happiness is. This was added later, so it's not in my original slide deck. Again, this is your definition, right? Your definition of happiness. It's not from a fitness magazine or necessarily your doctor or family or friends. Those definitions may not serve your life. Now, I'm not telling you to not listen to a medical professional. What I'm suggesting is what you've potentially been told. If you're projecting that that's a definition of happiness, it may not be your definition of happiness. What area of your life would you most like to improve? Is it your health? Is it your relationships, family, finances, career, spirituality, self-development, or something else unique to you? What areas are your main areas of struggle or are the most challenging for you? Again, this goes back to my comment a little bit earlier. What keeps showing up year after year after year on your New Year's resolution list? Is it something that relates to your family or your relationships or your career, finances, health, spirituality, self-awareness, something that's unique to you? Do you struggle to find balance between your fitness needs, your personal needs, your life tasks, your social life, and work? If yes, when time and energy or money is tight, kind of what do you do? Think over your history. What do you typically do? What has been your pattern? What do you find most challenging in life? Is that your relationships? Is it your work? Is it money? Is it family? What is more challenging for you? Balance or discipline? What areas would you like to see healing, changes, or growth in? What are some of the things that you feel limit you in growth, keep you from achieving your goals, or block you from living to your fullest ability? Again, this is one of those areas where I'm just going to make the comment, be honest, think on this deeply. And especially for those of you who have gone through the Vital Lifelong Alignment program, right? And we recognize that we probably have 10, 20, or even 30 years longer to live than we thought. And we may have been living one way. Here's our opportunity to make a change. What are you most passionate about in life? Do you feel that you're living your purpose? What would you like to feel or be different, better or more in your life? What would you like to have, be, or do more in your life? And what do you think are the most beautiful, positive things about the world? For those of you who came to Ideal Life Day 2020, we had Dr. Linda there from Ever Widening Circles. Looking at the positive in the world. Get really creative here. List as many as you can. If you need some help, go to Ever Widening Circles. I highly recommend it for anyone. What do you think are the worst things in the world? And be honest. What are you most grateful for in your life? And list the things you're really grateful for, not the things you know you should be grateful for, like I have a house, roof over my head, and those sorts of things. The things that you are truly, truly grateful for. When you have had a long day and really need to recharge, would you choose to be home and have some, alone time, or go out and socially interact? What would make you feel renewed, would make you feel re-energized, would make you feel restored? When you experience stress, negative feelings, and or emotions, what do you typically do to deal with them? Dive deep again and look at your patterns. What do you typically do to deal with these things? Some of the go-tos in our culture include zoning out with the TV, surfing the internet, overeating, drinking, shopping, gambling. There's a whole list of vices that you could get attached to. What is it that you do? You know, do you sit down with a pint or half gallon of Ben and Jerry's? I mean, it sounds like a pretty good option, but I'm not sure it's very healthy. What do you do to avoid feeling uncomfortable? What are you avoiding? Please list both positive and negative ways, helpful and not helpful, that you deal with this feeling. How do you escape or process your unwanted feelings? Please list both positive and negative, helpful and not helpful ways you deal with them. Let's talk a little bit about what we eat. Write down your average daily food intake. These are meals and what they're made up of, as well as what time of the day you eat them, including size. We tend as a society to be obsessing all the time over calories, et cetera. We just want to, and that's not the purpose of this. We just want to uncover patterns and acknowledge it. If you aren't sure, track it for a few days. Use a journal or an app. There are a number of apps that are available out there that can help you tracking this, including micronutrients, how much protein, how much how many carbohydrates, how much fat that you're consuming. What do you feel are your biggest challenges with diet and nutrition? What stores or markets do you purchase groceries from? How often do you eat dairy products? This would be obviously milk, cheese, yogurt, etc. How often do you eat grains or wheat products? Rice, quinoa, oatmeal, bread, pasta, etc. Again, rice, bread, pasta, bread. What is your guilty pleasure in food or drink? Mine is chocolate. I'm a bit of a chocoholic. I don't drink a lot of alcohol, and again, it's not a judgment thing. I always tell people that. I always say it's because I'm reserving and conserving my calories for chocolate or something sweet. What favorite foods and drinks can you not live without? In your mind, you basically say life just wouldn't be worthwhile without. And what is that for you? What foods do you really like? What foods do you really dislike or have a negative reaction to? What's your favorite meal? What time of the day or night do you crave your favorite things? How often do you eat potato chips, corn chips, or similar salted snack foods? How often, how much, and what kind of alcohol do you consume? How many servings of fruit do you eat every day? How many servings of vegetables do you eat every day? What sources of and how much protein do you eat every day? Now, we like to make the comment here that beans, which a lot of people think is protein, and it is protein, but they have many more carbs than protein. So kind of generally speaking, in the protein category, we're talking about fish and chicken and eggs, meat, protein powder, etc. How many servings of grains, so rice, bread, oatmeal, quinoa, barley, do you eat per day, and what kind? How much water, like how many 8-ounce glasses do you consume per day? Guess or estimate that, that's fine. Which describes what your typical eating habit is. You stop eating when you feel full, you stop eating when your plate is empty, you go back for second helpings, you forget to eat, or something that's unique to you. Think about your habits, your patterns. Do you eat quickly, at a normal speed, or slowly? How many times per day do you eat? How many sweets, candy, sugar, desserts do you eat per day or per week? How many of your daily meals have condiments or dressings on them? Right? These are things such as mayonnaise or ketchup or salad dressing, sauces, generally speaking. How often do you eat canned or pre-prepared or frozen foods? And if and when you do, what kind? How many caffeinated beverages, coffee, tea, soda do you drink per day or per week, and what kind? What do you feel are your biggest challenges with exercise? Why you do or don't do it, when you do it or don't do it? How often do you exercise, and for how long each session? How long have you been exercising, and are you consistent? Did you or do you play any sports? And did you play sports in high school or college? What physical activities do you most enjoy? Is it dancing or biking or hiking or surfing? For me, it's hydrofoiling. What hobbies do you enjoy in life, or what things do you like to do or want to do for fun? And by the way, these can be physical or non-physical. So, one of my favorite things to do is fly. It's not a particularly physically demanding job, or task. It's a mentally challenging one. What do you least enjoy about exercise? What areas of your body do you feel are your strongest? Another way to look at this is those that are healthiest or you would consider to be best in shape. What areas of your body do you feel are your weakest? Converse of that, unhealthiest or least in shape. What areas or aspects of your physical body or physical health do you want to see the most change in? Would you characterize your cardiovascular ability as good, average, or poor? Would you characterize your flexibility as good, average, or poor? This is an area that I'm personally working on. Flexibility has never been my strong suit. And one of the things that I've noticed recently, a pattern that I've noticed in my exercising, is I'm starting to lose some of that flexibility. So I'm shifting my focus in what I'm doing to increase my flexibility. Do you start exercise programs and find it hard to stick to them or to continue them after some period of time? What is the biggest reason, challenge, or goal in your physical health or your physical life, the things around you, such as your financial health for that matter, that you want to work on in this program? What is the biggest or most important goal to achieve in your fitness or your health? What would you like to be different, better, or more in your physical world? And this can include your health, your fitness, your nutrition, and or the things you own that create your outer environment. Please write a brief medical, personal, and family history. Please include dates next to any illnesses or injuries or major life changes or loss. Please make sure that you list any medical conditions and medications, including the dosage. So at the bottom of this, there's a section for medical, and then we move on to personal, family. Now, we talk about the impact in Vital Lifelong Alignment, and some of you have been in that program. That's the webinar series that we did prior to this one, about the impact that genetics have on longevity. It's not as much as people think. It's more of a learned behavior. That's intriguing to you and you don't know what I'm talking about, you can send me an email, or next time we do Vital Lifelong Alignment, you can join in. But what is your genetic as well as cultural background? Please list both sides of the family and their approximate year of birth. And examples of that would be African American father, Middle Eastern mother, culturally raised in Middle Eastern environment. In other words, those are the foods and traditions. And you grew up in Nebraska, as an example. Please describe your current state of health in your physical body. Do you smoke cigarettes or use drugs, either recreationally, illegally, or otherwise? If so, how many, how much, and how often? jump back. Just trying to move my video there. Do you have high blood pressure or high cholesterol? When did you last have blood work done, and what were the results? This is a great question. I think many of you know, I explained it, I speak about this pretty freely, that I use both, typical Western medicine. I've got a primary care physician, but who I spend most of my time with is my naturopath. I have and how I came to have a naturopath is this exact conversation. When have you last had your blood work done? Now, for a lot of individuals, this is part of a physical. And the question that I have is, what were your results? You may have to request the actual physical results from your doctor. And you may need to ask your doctor to do a detailed review letter. This is my point. Stating that you're normal isn't a detailed review. What you really need to understand is what is out of balance and what is not optimal. I'll take a moment to share my story with you. So it started out by the fact that I would go, and I was very diligent about having my annual physical, and I would go see my doctor. He'd ask me a bunch of questions, and when I was done with the doctor, he'd send me down the hall. I'd get my blood drawn, and then a couple of weeks later, what would end up happening is I would get a letter in the mail saying everything is normal, and then of course what included in that for me was the actual lab results. And as I looked at those and tried to interpret them, what I noticed was there are a couple of areas on there that I'm like, I'm okay. I'm kind of in the normal range, but boy, if this gets any further out of whack, I'm not going to be in a good place. And for me, it had to do with my LDL, HDL, my ratios, and my total cholesterol number was something that I wanted to work on. So I asked the doctor if I could switch it up a little bit. And what ended up happening was for a number of years, what I did was I had asked the doctor, so how many weeks do you need in order to get these lab results back? Because what I want to do is I'd like you to draw my blood first. I'd like you to get the results. And then when I come in, I'd like to have a conversation about them. And we did that for a number of years, and kind of what basically said, okay, I'm not in the right place for me, is, I explained this concern that I had, that how do I fix my LDL, HDL ratios and those sorts of things. And two things happened in this conversation. Number one, he pulled out his iPhone back when they were new, pulled up an app, asked me a couple of, very generic questions and said, well, the likelihood that you're going to die before you're age 65 is, 2%. And I said, well, that's not the question I asked. The question is, how do I get this under control? And his first response was, I can put you on a statin drug. Well, in my early 40s, I will tell you the last thing that I was going to do is going to go on a statin drug for the rest of my life. So I sought out a different approach. And that different approach is my naturopath. I have my blood drawn every quarter. And I have a 1-hour consultation with my physician every quarter to review the results and talk about where I am. It's a form of accountability for me. Okay, enough on that subject. Date of last physical. When did you last see the doctor? When did you have a full last physical? I do it on my own, but also as a pilot, I'm required to do it. And at my age, at a minimum, I have to do it every 2 years. Date of last eye exam. When was the last time you had an eye exam? Date of your last dental exam or cleaning. Are you overweight or underweight? And if so, in either direction, by how much? Is there a history of mental illness or depression for you or anyone in your family, including those that you live with? Are there any family members with mental illness, depression, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, obesity, eating disorders, or other diseases, illnesses, or conditions? Knowing where we came from and what we might be part of our makeup, either physically or mentally, is a good thing to know. Do you take vitamins? and or supplements? And if so, what kind and how often? And then I would ask you, and then how did you come to take these? Are these things suggested by a doctor, a naturopath, or, you know, did you just go on WebMD and kind of self-prescribe you some supplements? Are you on any medications? And please list the dosage and information in detail again here. You know, this is a great place to research the medications that we are all on, if you're on medications, and understand what the possible side effects exist for those particular items. Oftentimes we simply accept from our doctor that we're going to take this, and we don't spend a lot of time researching it. I'm going to go back to our last session on the Vital Lifelong Alignment and the Successful Centenarians module that we did. And one of the things that we know about successful centenarians, people who live to age 100 and beyond, is they question. They ultimately will follow the advice if they think that that advice is best suited for them, but they question what is going on, especially as it relates to things that are related to their body. Have you ever been diagnosed with any illnesses, disease, or disorders? And have you experienced a cure or healing from any of the diagnosed disorders or disease? Have you ever received any advice, warnings regarding physical exercise by a doctor? And if so, what? How many days or hours per week do you work? Or if you are, what our culture refers to as retired, how many days or hours per week do you engage in whatever it is that you are now currently engaged in? Is that healthy or not? Do you enjoy your job, or, to what I just indicated, that which you're currently involved in? And if the answer is yes, let's celebrate the positive. What specifically about it do you enjoy? And if the answer to that is no, what specifically about it do you find unsatisfying? Do you feel that you are doing what you were created to do? Are you living your dream? It's another thing I could say, be honest here. How many hours per night do you sleep? How often do you go on vacation? When was the last vacation, and where was it, and how long were you there? I mentioned I was having this conversation just this past weekend with Beth, because all the things that we're going through right now, and stay home, stay healthy, and quarantines and lockdowns and those sorts of things. It's been a while since we have had a couples weekend or time away, which we normally do, and we haven't had the opportunity to do that in quite some time because of what we've been going through. What was your favorite family vacation or vacation, and why? I've got one. I'm ready to do it again. How much time do you spend outdoors? And when outdoors, what sort of activities do you do? Is it walking the dog? Is it gardening? Is it going to the beach? Is it outdoor cafes? What is it for you? What would you like to be different, better, or more in your emotional life? Your feelings, your emotions, your relationships, both with self and other. We're going to talk about self and self-care deeper in one of our future modules. Would you consider your upbringing to be healthy or dysfunctional? And if you do, in either of those categories, why? Why did you select that? Who do you spend most of your time with? And is that relationship satisfying? What is your social activity level in your community? Do you have a group of friends you see regularly? Have you experienced physical, emotional, verbal, spiritual, or sexual abuse? What recreational, both enjoyable and relaxing things do you enjoy, and how often do you enjoy them? What do you like about yourself? What don't you like about yourself? Write as much as you can on these subjects, but remember to find the positive, not just the negative. Do you have negative emotions that you still feel now that have to do with things that have happened in the past? And if so, also write down how long you have been experiencing them. Do you have any anger, resentments, or unforgiveness towards any person, place, thing, or situation? And this is including God. How often do you see or speak to friends? Write a brief description of how you have perceived yourself, your mind, body, etc., for the majority of your life and any recent changes to that. Be honest. Again, take a deep dive. How have you really viewed yourself the majority of your life? Write a brief description of your relationship to food, exercise, and self-care in the past and the present. Write a brief description of your relationship with yourself in the past and present. In order to have a relationship, we have to spend time, energy, and attention. How do you treat yourself? Do you invest enough time in yourself, enough energy in yourself? Are you loving or judgmental with yourself? Write a brief description of your relationships with others, your family, your friends, lovers, partners in the past and present. Try to see if you notice any patterns and journaling about that here. Do you feel very satisfied, moderately satisfied, or dissatisfied with your life most of the time? Are you single, or are you in a relationship? And if you are single, are married, or in a relationship, how often do you and your partner go on dates with each other? Are you happy with your relationship and or your relationship status? Is it fulfilling? What could make it more fulfilling? Are you satisfied with your sex life? Is there anything specific that you would like to be better, different, or more? When something upsets you, do you tend to get angry, get sad, get frustrated, shut down, scream, cry, ignore it, talk about it, etc.? What have been the most significant losses and major life changes you have experienced? By your definition, have you experienced anything traumatic or upsetting? And that's, well, I guess it could be, but I don't think we're talking about people cutting you off in traffic. When you experience these losses or changes, what coping mechanisms what coping did you use to deal with them? Was, again, this kind of this list of things that we talked about. Was it food or television, sex, drugs, sleep, alcohol, shutting down, avoidances, shopping, anger, whatever it might be? Do you feel satisfied with your personal life? What top 5 values or characteristics do you most value in life? And some examples here would be integrity or love or success or money or friendship, support, freedom, etc. Please list them in order of importance to you. Number 1 being of the highest importance. And by the way, this is a great opportunity for those of you who have been through this before. Remember, our mind thinks we write things down in order. Do the check. Go, if I can only have 1 or 2, which is most important? 2 or 3, right? You go through that process. You've been through that with me before. Just make sure that they're in the right order, because what we write down is instinctively is potentially not what is the true order. Are you more of an optimist or a pessimist? And how does that affect your life? What do you think most often about? Are your thoughts happy, stressful, sad, etc.? These are the thoughts that occur most often or over and over. It's maybe that place that we drift off to and we're thinking about. What would you like to be different, better, or more in the mental system of your life? Your thoughts, your thought patterns, your thought habits, and self-perceptions. When you have thoughts about yourself, what are they? And when you look in the mirror, what do you actually think? How often Do you learn new things through reading, researching, taking classes or seminars, or having discussions with others? And some of you may already know where I'm going to go here, but another habit of successful centenarians is they're always, always learning. When you spend time thinking about you and your life, what feelings, either physically or emotionally, do you feel afterwards? Are you anxious, stressed, happy, positive, hopeful, empowered, helpless, out of control, sick to your stomach? Do you have a headache, exhaustion, overwhelmed, or neutral? What are your spiritual beliefs? And again, remember, when we're talking about in the holistic integrative models, spirituality is different from religious preference or your religious practice, both of which are completely coherent, congruent, congruent. Do you have any negative association to any spiritual or religious experiences in the past? How do you choose to practice your beliefs? How often do you pray, or how often do you meditate? And by the way, that's not either or, could be both. How often do you think about your spiritual life and how it could be strengthened? What would you like to be different, better, or more in your spiritual life? And what are the 5 most important spiritual goals that you have? For example, it could be feeling a connection to a higher power. It could be doing more charitable work. It could be maybe making an impact. Maybe it's reading and studying spiritual material, or whatever you define as your way of taking action in your spiritual life. What are your 5 most important physical goals with regard to health and anything else in your external environment? Maybe it's organizing your closet. I think many of us have had plenty of time in the last 90 days to do that. It doesn't mean it got done. That we had plenty of time. What are your 5 most important emotional goals? Attitudes, emotions, relationships. What are your 5 most important mental goals? These are your thoughts, perceptions, and attitudes. So there we are. We are at the end of the self-discovery form. Hopefully this guide, by me going through and reading the questions and adding some commentary on often asked questions about what do you mean by that? What should I put here? You know what? There is no right or wrong answer. But here's the thing that I want you to be able to do. I want to make sure that you celebrate the investment that you have just made in yourself, even just listening to those questions, because it's in your subconscious now. You're going to be thinking about this. But again, celebrate by doing the deep, honest dive of your self-discovery. All right, so let's talk about what our homework is for next week. 2 goals. Number 1, complete the self-discovery form. And the second part of that is write about what you discovered about yourself and your life by answering the questions in the self-discovery form. I need you to focus, right? Get clear about the choices, the thoughts, and patterns that you have been participating in your life and what results they are creating. So I want you to go back and take some time to reflect upon what you discovered. And if you were to have an aha moment, as we like to say, or, oh, I connected the following dots. Or maybe it's just a therapeutic exercise to just get it down on paper. I'd love for you to be prepared to share that with us if you are comfortable in doing so. If there was something in particular, and you can keep it generic, doesn't need to be super specific, that you had, and we look forward to that. So that brings us to the end of week 2, the self-discovery form and transform week 2. I will look forward to seeing you next week for week 3. And until then, have a fantastic week.